Alright, so Essence Harvest and my game time so far. I've obviously changed games and my sort of design plans going on, so I'll very briefly go over stuff like the logline, the storyboarding, the references, and some of the art I created. Sort of go over the things to establish this new game that I'm doing instead now. Alright, so first we'll go over the logline, and then we'll go through the themes and genre again. I'll go through that very briefly, just to get it done, and sort of catch you up as to the intention of the game. A brief sort of narrative introduction and where I want to take the game. I'll do more talking through that, references as well, and finally the storyboard and the art. Alright, so the new logline is that the player enters a magical academy where they must balance their schedule in order to maintain their scholarship. I'll get into more stuff later in the themes and genre. So, the overview is that it is a farming simulator that focuses more on the casual experience, wherein the player manages a schedule while attending said magical academy. Naturally, the theme is very light-hearted. Genre is obviously farming simulator, focus more on like casual gamers, as opposed to something more difficult, a more laid-back experience. And the narrative so far is just the opening, where the game will open with the player character. The player character will be a set individual and won't be like customizable, mostly so I can give them a personality and thus give the player a way to sort of connect with the character, and also the sort of give more agency to the maintaining the scholarship as the character itself will react to it. So they are enrolled in the school, they learn about their responsibilities and have to maintain their relationships and scholarships. They will be obviously introduced to the layer of the school along with the other characters in this opening, a sort of like pseudo-tutorial, if you will, and then they'll sort of be let loose into the scheduling system, which we'll go over in a bit. The focus are the three sort of main things, which are the schedule, which is sort of the guidelines for the player. As I mentioned a ton of times before, that they must maintain that schedule and sort of adjust how they do things. And then obviously the other characters that attend the academy and their relationships, and how the player sort of has their own agency. Along with the goals, the casual focus means that players can also choose what to focus on, what not to focus on. Something from Stardew Valley, wherein you can not play the game, you can basically just not actually engage with any of the mechanics, but and the game won't really punish you for it, so just go on as normal. And the references, so as mentioned before, Stardew Valley, Sunhaven, Harvest Moon, because it is obviously the sort of grandfather of the genre, and recently Kotori Academy sort of aims for a very similar sort of like magical farming simulator that I'm going through, but it's a little different in that it has like a focus on animals as opposed to crops and things like that. I intend to focus more on a social idea than the sort of magical classes that game focuses on. So naturally, Harvest Moon, being sort of where all these games come from, offers the most like basic and best basis for where to follow through these games. Stardew Valley, being the most popular of the genre, naturally has its sort of things to draw from. It's very like contrasting art style, very neat. It's very clean looking UI. It does obviously have its fair share of problems in terms of narrative, given that everything was done by the same person and the developer isn't very good at like narrative and things like that, which is something I plan on focusing on immensely. Moving on to the storyboard, well, the schedule and how it will work as a character plays out through the game. So, early morning, the player wakes up with a quarter of the energy in their cannons and breakfast to fill it. This is sort of a way to sort of reinforce that schedule is easy to maintain. The late morning will be like the classes and they can harvest, and lunches where they can interact with player characters. This sort of is a guideline, the players need to stick to it, but these are the times when events will be happening, and the player needs to sort of manage what they want to do, when, and where, in order to sort of maintain their goals as they see fit. This is the second half of the schedule, wherein the sort of end day comes and there'll be free time, there'll be after school things for the player to do and engage with as well, to make things a bit more casual and laid back, to avoid like the stress of the schedule too much. And finally we come to the art. Now honestly, these are just map icons I quickly drew up to make them extremely readable, super simplistic. I actually just grabbed every single nature emoji and sort of just like used those for references and like went over them. Uh, a lot of these won't be used. Like I don't plan on having like animals in the game, so to speak, but like things like the winter icon, spider icon for nature. This for like areas. This will all be like on the map. And the intent was to focus entirely on readability and making it easy for the players to see like what things are and things like that. Obviously, like some interpretation will be needed. Things like the spider showing danger, sort of isn't direct, right? It's clear enough for the player. This is for the educational maps. I did the exact same thing. Grabbed a whole bunch of the educational emojis. So a few things like this one and this one I'll be using, but this is just like these are the classes and these are what like music class as an example, writing, sports, things like that. It's just right now it's just a grab bag of things that I've sort of got, and these are the extra ones for the extracurricular activities. I think like drama class, music. Well, I actually have two music icons on it. I was like arts, singing, pop, like movies, social activities, things like that. To try and keep the player engaged in what they want to do after school. This will be used for like dressing up and things like that. Obviously, as with the other ones, some of these aren't going to be used, but yeah, that's so far everything I've covered in terms of art. It's mostly just sort of at the basis. I focus mostly on map icons. So that is the thing I've noticed that a lot of these games seem to stray away from, is sort of a very clear, readable map, and that's kind of what I did first.